Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 12 2015 NFL predictions. Well, this week, I've been able to have a decent bounce-back week. Instead of going 5-9 like I did 2 weeks ago, this week I'm 8-5 right now, and I could be 9-5. So, to be able to flip the numbers and have a winning record, that's a great boost. But now, I have gone to below 60% for my overall predictions, and I've always, that's a new low for me. I don't even think, I can't even remember the last time when I've done picks, and I've picked games now for about 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 7 full years now, and I can't remember the last time my overall picking percentage was below 60%. So obviously, my goal of 70% that I wanted, a personal best, is out of reach. But if I can get back to 63, 64%, you got 5 16-game weeks coming up. I hope that can be attainable, and I think it can. So, what a crazy week in the NFL, as always. What's going on with Detroit, everybody? Like, they fired their whole staff. They fired their president, their general manager. They fired their offensive coordinators and offensive line coaches. And ever since they did that, they've won their last 2 games and they've given up 14.5 points a game to the Packers and Raiders. 2 of the most impressive offenses in the league. It's unbelievable to watch that. You know, watch this happening. It's like, where was this Detroit team all along? This is the Detroit team that we needed to see, and this could have helped everybody's job. But, you know, I think, you know, kudos to them for getting, you know, a nice 2-0 start going, and maybe Martha Ford has some power in her that has changed the complexion of the Lions franchise. We'll soon see. But I do want to congratulate them. Carolina, I also want to give a tremendous shout out to their fans and anybody that watched them, to the Panthers fans, for starting 10-0 for the first time in franchise history, and the first team to start 10-0 since the 2011 Green Bay Packers. They had an incredible performance against the Washington Redskins. They had just as many turnovers as touchdowns, as Cam Newton threw for 5 touchdowns, and the Panthers defense caused 5 turnovers. And it was very nice to see Cam Newton it was very nice to see the Panthers players give the football to all the little kids. I think that was a direct message to a letter that was sent out this week by a Panthers fan that was concerned about Cam Newton's dancing offending her child, which I don't really quite understand, because Cam's, you know, and somebody brought up a great point. I think it was Michael Irvin on the NFL Network last night. Aaron Rodgers did the discount double check, and he gets commercials, and, you know, they make fun of it. But when Cam does his dancing, and again, he's from Atlanta, and that little dance he does with the, you know, little arm thing and little, you know, thing at the end there, that was in Atlanta, and, you know, he's growing up there, and that's what they do. And I just don't see the difference, and I'm not trying to provoke any racial perspective, and yes, I know that they are different races, but I don't think that's the issue. But that's the problem I have with this woman complaining, is that Cam's just having fun. And you want your players to have fun when they play football, especially with the way they've been playing. You know, when you have the 4th rated overall defense and the 5th scoring defense, and you're number 4 in offense yourself, yeah, I would be dancing if I'd be that effective. So, but kudos to Carolina for that. Kudos to the Packers for snapping their 3-game losing streak by beating the Vikings 30-13. Special gold star to Mason Crosby for kicking 5 field goals, all over 40 yards. And again, it was a decisive victory to show that the Packers, in the words of Aaron Rodgers, all their fans should RELAX. Relax. Even though I did pick the Vikings, so I do apologize to any Packers fans that watch my video, to say that I was sorry, and I will not doubt Aaron Rodgers for pretty much the rest of the year. They do have that game when Arizona comes to town. That's going to be a fun game to watch, and I don't know really who's going to win that one. But, so kudos to the Packers for snapping their skid. And last, and I'll talk about all the other teams here in a second, last kudos to the Arizona Cardinals for getting their 4th straight win and beating the Bengals 34-31, and an incredible job by Palmer. What great revenge he had on his former team. He threw for over 300 yards. He had 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. The Bengals, you know, it's kind of awkward Because there's a part of me saying these are the Bengals that we expected in the bigger moments, and now Andy Dalton's primetime record drops to 4-13 overall. But the Bengals put up a heck of a fight. They did a great job, and I have to give them credit. I didn't think it would be that competitive. So kudos to the Bengals for making it that competitive. But I just thought again the number one overall offense beat the defense, and that wins games. But kudos to the Cardinals for that. All right, time for my picks. This Thursday, Thanksgiving, when the 4-6 Philadelphia Eagles go to the 3-7 Detroit Lions, I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. And then in the afternoon game, when the 10-0 Carolina Panthers go to the 3-7 Dallas Cowboys, I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers. And then in the nightcap, when the 4-6 Chicago Bears go to the 7-3 Green Bay Packers, I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. And then on Sunday, when the 4-6 New Orleans Saints go to the 5-5 Houston Texans, I'm going to take the Houston Texans. When the 6-4 or 5-5 Buffalo Bills go to the 5-5 Kansas City Chiefs, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs. When the 2-8 San Diego Chargers go to the 4-6 Jacksonville Jaguars, I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars. When the 7-3 Minnesota Vikings go to the 6-4 Atlanta Falcons, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings. When the 4-6 Miami Dolphins go to the 5-5 New York Jets, I am taking the New York Jets. When the 5-5 New York Giants go to the 4-6 Washington Redskins, I'm going to take the New York Giants. When the 4-6 Oakland Raiders go to the 2-8 Tennessee Titans, I'm going to take the Oakland Raiders. When the 4-6 St. Louis Rams go to the 8-2 Cincinnati Bengals, I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. When the 5-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the 5-5 Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts. When the 8-2 Arizona Cardinals go to the 3-7 San Francisco 49ers, I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. When the 6-4 Pittsburgh Steelers go to the 5-5 Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the Sunday game, when the 10-0 or 9-1 New England Patriots go to the 8-2 Denver Broncos, I'm going to take the New England Patriots. And then in the Monday night game, when the 3-7 Baltimore Ravens go to the 2-8 Cleveland Browns, I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens. All right, time for my thoughts on each game. Philadelphia at Detroit. Ugh, this is an awkward Thanksgiving game, and it's almost like you're seeing mirror images of how teams can use momentum and build up. Detroit, again, like I said in the beginning of the video, after firing all their management and their coordinators, they've won 2 straight. And against the Packers and the Raiders, they've only given up 14.5 points a game, which is impressive. And I think that's incredibly shocking because I didn't expect this out of this Detroit team after all those moves. Stafford's looked more efficient. Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate are making bigger plays. And also, here's a little fun fact. Detroit has won back-to-back Thanksgiving games after losing 9 straight before then. So Detroit's getting a little bit more of that positive momentum in that home game on Thanksgiving. And they're taking on a Philadelphia Eagles team right now that is looking like an absolute dumpster fire. My gosh, you give up 5 touchdowns to Jameis Winston, which ties a rookie record, by the way. Doug Martin runs for a Buccaneers franchise record 231 yards, and you allow him to run for 200 yards for only the second time in his career. Mark Sanchez throws 3 interceptions, including 2 in the fourth quarter and 1 a pathetic pick 6. And I'm just looking at this Lions team, and I'm just going, and also you have Sam Bradford, who, I'm going to say this, I'm one of those guys that thought that Mark Sanchez could have done better, or would have done better than Bradford, because I thought he was more athletic. But I also said to people that, he's accident prone. But I will admit this, for this week, I do think that Bradford would have been the better option. Okay, I'll admit that. As much as I dislike Sam Bradford, or Sam Badford, I gotta stop calling him Bradford. He's Badford. Sam Badford. He's likely to be out, and also Zach Ertz suffered concussion, so there's, your number 1 quarterback and your number 1 tight end out for the game. Matthews is still going through concussion protocol. And I just trust this Lions team. There's an awkward vibe of this Detroit team. Ever since they made those moves, they've gained more confidence. And I believe this game, it can be competitive. Would I be, Philadelphia, could they make it competitive against Detroit? They could. Detroit's Detroit. They've Philadelphia has only lost 1 time out of the last 6 or 7 meetings, maybe a couple more. to the Lions. But there's just a certain aura of both teams that I'm buying more of the Lions building towards their future than the Eagles right now that are plummeting deeper and deeper down the abyss. So, again, it should be a competitive game. And for all Eagles fans out there, one more quick thing before we go to the Carolina game. It's time to move on from Chip Kelly. This coach, the offense is so predictable, and he just has no, sense of, well, we need to change things. No. Yesterday in the press conference, he literally told everybody, would you consider benching Sanchez? No, because this is really his first game. And I'm like, well, if you throw 3 interceptions, including 2 in the fourth quarter, and with the game the way it was going, I'm like, why not? If you put Dad Lewis in the game, what would it hurt? Maybe Dad could have showed something, and maybe it could have given some Eagle fans some optimism. But for all the Chip Kelly supporters out there, and I know there's a few out there that I've seen, on the internet, just stop it, okay? It's time for Chip to go. It's time for Badford to go. It's time to clean the whole house and start over. I know it blows, but hey, at least for Philadelphia fans, at least the Eagles will have more optimism than the Sixers. So I'll leave it at that. But that's why I'm going to take the Detroit Lions to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Carolina over Dallas. Again, Carolina, a phenomenal game, and they're coming into Dallas winning 14 straight. And also, this is one of those color rush games, so everybody gets to see those ugly-looking monochromatic uniforms again. Oh boy, and actually I like the Panthers one. If anybody asks me, I'll take the Panthers uniform over the Cowboys, which is pure white. And they're playing a Dallas team that, hey, they're still undefeated under Tony Romo. Welcome back, Tony. He had a solid game. I'm going to throw out the 2 interceptions. They were from rust, obviously. But they scored, they won a game. They're 3-0 under Romo, 0-7 without him. So, and I think there was a good joke of Tony Romo could deserve being the MVP this year. And I think that maybe some people would say, just because of how bad Dallas looked, the fact that they couldn't win a game with a quality backup, one quality backup quarterback. Brandon Whedon's a scrub. But when I look at this game, a lot of this points to Dallas, and there's some unique stats that point this to Dallas. Tony Romo has never lost to the Carolina Panthers. He is a perfect 4-0. And also, Tony Romo has the best record in the history of the NFL in November. He improved his record yesterday to 27-6 as a starter. Very impressive. So all those stuff points to Dallas. But I'm going to take Carolina here because this Carolina team, they just seem like nothing is going to stop them right now. Again, they have the 4th-ranked offense. They have the 4th-ranked overall defense, and they have the 5th-ranked scoring defense. And I'm just looking at Dallas and going, you beat up Miami. This is Tannehill and Lamar Miller and Landry, and these are weapons that really aren't that effective. You're going to be playing against Cam Newton, Greg Olsen, and these receivers. And remember, Carolina yesterday didn't even have Tillman and Corey Brown. So if they get those guys back, that'll make this defense and this offense even more effective. I believe this game can be a lot more competitive because Tony is playing. If this was Castle or Whedon, this would be a blowout for the Panthers. I would guarantee it. I don't think it's going to be a blowout for the Panthers. But I'm just looking at this Panthers team saying, I don't see this Cowboy offense, especially against this Panthers defense, being able to hold up. And I think Romo's going to take some shots. And I just think he's going to make a couple mistakes. And I think Josh Norman going up against Dez Bryant, that's going to be a great matchup. I think that Norman can contain Dez to a non-effective game. And I just have to take these Panthers right now. They are 10-0, incredibly impressive. And this Cowboy team, this is the game that Romo needs to win for the Cowboys to have any chance in the NFC East still. But I'm going to take Carolina just because when you have those kind of defenses and that kind of offense going up against this team that's just getting their bearings back together, it's hard to go against them. So again, it should be an interesting game, and I think it could be fun. But I'm going to take the Carolina Panthers to win this game. Chicago at Green Bay. Again, Green Bay, 9-1-1 in their last 11 games against the Minnesota Vikings. Very impressive. The Vikings had not given up over 20 points in any of their games. this year. They gave up 30 to the Packers, so kudos to the Packers offense for doing that. And also, kudos for, the Packers fans to just feel comfortable. Don Capers had a phenomenal game. He had 6 sacks and a takeaway, and that defense looked a lot more effective than it had over the last 3 weeks, which they had lost. Maybe besides the Detroit game, I'll give them a little bit of a pass for that. But this is a Green Bay team that's playing a Bears team that when I picked them, and I feel so ashamed because I'm like, Jay Cutler would make a mistake or the Bears would do something stupid to blow the game, and they did, there was 2 things. One, I guess Cutler getting strip sacked, and then Malik Jackson getting the ball. You can't let that happen, Cutler. And then 2, on like a 4th and goal with about 9 minutes left, they could have kicked the field goal and taken a 5-point lead, but Cutler decides to go for it. He throws a horrible pass to Langford. And you know what's funny? They would have ended up winning the game by a point if that field goal would have went in. But that's 20/20 hindsight. Maybe that's just me being a little bit bitter as me picking the Bears, just saying the Bears could have won that game. And again, I'm looking at these 2 teams. Chicago has lost 12 of the last 14 games against Green Bay. Green Bay's only lost now, they've only lost 1 game at Lambeau. Last year, when the Bears went to Lambeau, they were down 52-0 at the end of the first half, and Aaron Rodgers had already thrown, or 42-0, and he had already thrown 6 touchdown passes. I think this defense, they're not going to be that bad, and I think this offense could be more competitive. But when you have this Green Bay team that has a huge confidence boost, along with Brett Favre being there to have his jersey retired by the Packers organization, that's just a mix of I don't see with that kind of motivation and that kind of hype in Lambeau Field where Jay Cutler and this Bears team can win. And this Bears team's awkward to me because it's like they're that team that you pick them and I lose, and if I pick against them, they win. And I never can get a Bears game right. But I'm going to go with the Packers here. I have the confidence. And also, Jay Cutler really only has, I think, 1 legitimate win against Aaron Rodgers in his career. The other one was when Aaron Rodgers went down to an injury, and everybody knew that the Bears were going to win after that. So again, this can be a competitive game, but I'm going to take Green Bay to beat Chicago. Too much offensive firepower and just too much of a high of a confidence that I think the Packers can, carry over. My locks for the week, just real quick, I just realized I'm going to lock in that Arizona beats San Francisco. I'm going to lock in New England beats Denver. And I'm going to lock in that Kansas City beats Buffalo. So those are my 3 locks for the week. And then the Sunday games. New Orleans at Houston. New Orleans was on a bye, but they sure had a lot of big shakeups. The biggest one, they fired Rob Ryan, which he deserved, after giving up 47 points to Kirk Cousins and the Redskins, which was unbelievable. But to me, it's like, I don't know what this New Orleans team is going to do, and I feel so bad for Drew Brees. He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. He's one of the best quarterbacks out there today. And just having him to just sit there and watch his defense give up that many points, and he really can't do anything with his offense, it's just sad. Because he deserves better than this. And I do expect Peyton and Brees to be out of New Orleans after this year. But I'm going to take the Houston Texans in a bit of an upset here. Just because the Houston Texans, amazingly, have won 3 straight. I don't think anybody's realized that. The Houston Texans have won 3 straight games. They've beaten the Titans, Bengals, and Jets. And I have to say this, TJ Yates did a pretty good job. And actually, I'm going to put this little seed out there. If he continues to play like this, Bill O'Brien, why not keep him? He's not that different from Brian Hoyer. And I was a TJ Yates fan from the beginning. I thought that TJ Yates, once Matt Schaub a couple years ago was, going in a downward spiral, I thought TJ Yates should have got some shots. Again, they gave him to Case Keenum, and you look at what happened to him this week, and I'll get to that in a second at the end of the at the Monday night game. And I like TJ Yates. But I'm looking at this team. They're on a huge momentum swing. They've won, the last 2 home games. They've won 3 straight. J.J. Watt's had 7.5 sacks over the last 4 games. Incredibly impressive. DeAndre Hopkins is having a monster year. 1,045 yards, and 9 touchdowns. And he's doing it with guys like Brian Hoyer, TJ Yates, and Ryan Mallett, which is incredibly impressive. He's having that monster of a year. And I just have a feeling where, again, I'm going to trust Houston to be able to outscore New Orleans. There's just a part of me going with with Dennis Allen now taking over as defensive coordinator. I just don't see that much difference. I can't, it's been a week. They did it during the bye week, so they did have an extra week to put in Dennis's scheme. But I'm going to take the Texans here just because it's not that I don't expect Drew Brees to get shut down by the Houston defense. I just can expect with Houston's offense, they have enough talent, enough weapons, even with their running game, which is worse than New Orleans, to be able to outshoot the Saints. And again, I said that a couple weeks ago, and I was dead wrong about that because the Redskins defense showed up. Maybe the Houston defense can show up a bit, but again, this is a Saints team that, if they have any pride, they'll put up a better offensive performance. But I believe that the Texans will just be able to outshoot the Saints. Just some odd feeling. Like, there's a part of me going, New Orleans, I should take them. But I'm going to take Houston here just because I trust Houston's defense a little bit more, and New Orleans' defense is last in points allowed, averaging 31.5 points a game. And I think with how they're going and just about Houston's momentum, I believe T.J. Yates or Hoyer can put up that many points. So that's what we're going to take the Houston Texans to beat the New Orleans Saints. Buffalo at Kansas City. Buffalo has a huge game tonight against Brady and the Patriots. Brady's only lost 3 times to them, even though we did lose to them last year in the final game of the year. However, Brady was benched because they knew they had everything wrapped up, and Jimmy Garoppolo was in the game, and nobody expected him to win. So, I think Buffalo, they're 5-2 with their big 3, Tyrod, LaShawn, and Sammy. And last year, and they're going to be motivated from last year because they lost 16-10 to the Chiefs last year in Buffalo. So, to me, I look at this game and say it's an incredibly even matchup. But I'm going to take the Chiefs here because of a couple reasons. Home and their momentum. The Kansas City Chiefs, in their they've won 4 straight games. They're kind of like Houston. They're kind of the awkward team that nobody's really realized what kind of momentum this Chiefs team has built. They absolutely destroyed the Chargers, 33-3. Chadarick West, their second-string running back, has a decent game, but then he goes down, and then who comes out of nowhere? Spencer Ware, a third-round pick out of LSU, runs for another 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alex Smith has, done very effectively. He has the longest streak in the NFL without throwing an interception. I think it's up to about 270 attempts. So he's not turning the ball over, and they're playing Chief football. And during this 4-game stretch, they've allowed they've allowed an average, of 9.3 points per game. Look, I think that the Chiefs can hold the Bills' offense to maybe 9 points a game, or to 10 points, but I can expect the same thing out of the Bills. So to me, it's just something where I like the Chiefs' momentum because the Bills, they beat the Jets and they beat the Jets and Dolphins. They've won 2 straight against the AFC East. Good for them. And Tyrod definitely has some ability, but I think Alex Smith has just about a good mobility that he can cancel that out. The wide receiving game, you have one big weapon and a bunch of and it's about the same all around. So I like the Chiefs' momentum, and also they're just at home. And in this kind of game, would I be surprised if Buffalo wins this game? No, I would not. But just of how KC's playing, of how their defensive line is, making plays, how their secondary has been able to get a lot of interceptions. They've caused, 7 turnovers the last 2 games, or actually going back, I think now 11 turnovers in their last 4 games, which is incredibly impressive. I think with Tyrod, he's shown that he can have 2-3 interception games. And I think that, he might throw 2 or 3, which could be the difference. Again, it should be a great game. This is the old school game of the week to me. When I say old school, this is defensive running-based game where you're not going to get that many offensive points. It's going to be a grinded-out game. I'm going to take the Chiefs here just because, I guess, now that I've thought about it after talking about it, just because of one reason. They're home. And I would not be surprised if the Bills win, but I'm going to take the Chiefs here. Just to have some confidence in them. San Diego at Jacksonville. Again, this might be another awkward game, but I'm going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars here. San Diego, it's unbelievably sad how the Chargers, after starting 2-2, now have tied the NFL, tied, recently, the NFL's longest active losing streak at 6 games. Only the Titans had that long of a losing streak in this year. And to me, it's a combination of a lot of things. Melvin Gordon's looked very ineffective, and it's incredibly frustrating because he's the second guy after LT that they tried to get, and he hasn't really been effective. The wide receiving core has been shot down. The offensive line's been hammered with injuries. And, Antonio Gates looked like he went out of the game for a while. Malcolm Floyd had a shoulder injury. The secondary's been banged up. The linebackers. It's just, the injury bug, kind of like my Ravens, it's been really hard. And Phillip Rivers is doing everything he can. However, I'm one of those people that look at it I don't understand, and it's been funny, and this is a shout out to King Poetic. Check out his picks. He is a great prognosticator. But me and him, we've had an interesting debate about Phillip Rivers. And I'm one of those people that I don't understand how Phillip Rivers is that great. And me and him have had this debate for a while. And anybody, any other progs or any people, I don't understand how Phillip Rivers can't go without any blame for how bad this team's been. And I know a lot of people say, well, he has nothing to work with, and he has 3,000 yards, and he threw it for 500 yards against the Packers and all that other stuff. But he's had chances to win games. And when you allow the lowest amount of points to the Chiefs for, anybody, or for 3 points, that's just unacceptable. I don't know how you can't put any of the blame on the quarterback that was paid $84 million. I understand why he got that contract. I just didn't, because, and honestly, I understand his resume that, yeah, he definitely could get one, a contract like that, with everybody else. But how does Phillip Rivers not deserve any blame for how pathetic the Chargers have looked? Any blame. I'm not saying he deserves all of it, because honestly, there's been a lot more problems with that. But he does deserve blame, in my opinion. So, again, anybody out there, that's my question. This is another thing to King Poetic. Do any of you guys believe that Phillip Rivers deserves some blame? Deserves blame for any of the Chargers' struggles this year? Please let me know in the comment section. That'd be great. So again, the question: How many of you out there agree with me or agree with King Poetic that Phillip Rivers deserves blame, or a decent amount of blame for how bad the Chargers have been struggling, or are you more on King Poetic's side of that Phillip Rivers deserves no blame for how bad the Chargers have been this year? So please let me know. But time to go back to the game. So San Diego's looked pathetic. And Jacksonville, quietly, they've won 3 out of 4. And they've won back-to-back games for the first time in 29 games. Second longest active streak behind the Tennessee Titans. And I'm just looking at Jacksonville, and I'm going, there's a certain confidence about them that I'm liking here. They're playing, for something. They have to play for the AFC South because they're still only a game behind. And Jacksonville also at the same time is just more healthy. And I know San Diego over the last several years has dominated Jacksonville pretty well. But I believe that, Jacksonville, there's just a certain more confidence about them that I don't see in Phillip Rivers with the Chargers. Again, can San Diego win this game? They could. Jacksonville could just, be a competition thing. Because they beat Buffalo, which just doesn't look that bad now. They beat Buffalo with Manuel, they beat the Ravens, and they beat the Titans. Really not that impressive of a resume to say, oh yeah, that's a great job. But I'm going to take the Jags here just because I trust their defense. Bortles, is playing better. He's had 4 fourth-quarter game-winning drives. He leads the league in that category. And I just don't trust the Chargers team. There's just something about them that I don't like picking against them right now, and it's just awkward. So, again, that's why I'm going to take the Jaguars to beat the Chargers. Vikings at Falcons. I'm going to take the Vikings here just because, they played Green Bay and they showed that they put up some fight. And there definitely were some bad calls and some blown coverages and definitely mistakes by North Turner's offensive play calling. But I still think this Vikings team is in better shape overall than this Atlanta Falcon team. This Atlanta Falcon team just looks more overrated and more overrated as the games go on. It's unbelievable. After starting up 5-0, they've dropped 4 of the last 5, and they dropped 3 straight. And this was a game they should not have dropped. They get 2 interceptions from Matt Hasselbeck, and they get 3 overall turnovers of Frank Gore, and they're up 21-14 about mid-fourth quarter. And what does Matt Ryan do? He throws a pick 6 in the end zone to DeQuell Jackson that cost them the game. And I'm just looking at this Atlanta team, and I have to admit, we vastly overrated them. This might be the most overrated team that we had seen in the entire NFL. Because you cannot lose those kind of games. Because let's think about it. They lost to Matt Hasselbeck, Blaine Gabbert, Jameis Winston, after coming back from 20 down. And they lost to the Saints. The only team they beat was by Tennessee, and they only beat them by 3 points. So I'm looking at this Atlanta team and going, you're not really good at all. And I'm just going with Minnesota saying, look, the home teams won the last game in the last 4 meetings. They've had 4 games where the home teams won each game. So I know I just put that stat out there to maybe mess with people, but I'm going to take Minnesota here. I think that they have a good enough defense that they can shut down the running game, especially with Devontae Freeman having a concussion. I do not see him playing this week. And also, I just look at I look at Minnesota and say they have good enough weapons with Wallace and Patterson and Rudolph that they can get some big holes in the zone defense that Dan Quinn runs. And even if Atlanta can be competitive, I think that Matt Ryan will make a mistake. Instead of Matty Ice, Matt Ryan's been Matt Ice. He's been ice cold, as in, cold of just bad, not clutch, but bad. And I just have a good feeling about the Vikings. That they're going to take all that, frustration taking on the Falcons. But also, I do want to give a little, congratulations to Julio Jones. 88 receptions through a team's first 10 games. That ties an NFL record for most receptions through a team's first 10 games with Marvin Harrison. So, Julio, as your team's been struggling, at least you've been having a great individual season. Kudos to you. So, again, that's why I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Atlanta Falcons. Dolphins and Jets. Oh, another awkward pick'em where literally I looked at these two teams and said, I'm going to take the home team. Miami, they looked incredibly awful through the first 3 quarters of the Dallas Cowboy game. Ryan Tannehill at one point and only completed 2 passes for 12 yards. And one of those passes was a pick 6. He had a quarterback rating of 0 against this Cowboys defense. But then he had 2 nice drives where he put 2 touchdowns together, but then Romo and them drove back, and then Tannehill couldn't do anything after that. But they're playing a Jet team that's lost 4 of the last 5 games. Darrelle Reeves, is going through concussion protocol right now. Nick Mangold went out with a hand injury. Marshall's been battling injuries. And I'm looking at Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I'm seeing the bad Ryan Fitzpatrick. When you throw an interception, but then your defense holds up and you get another shot, the very next play you throw another interception that ends the game. And it's just a part of me going, if I had to take Ryan Tannehill or Ryan Fitzpatrick at this moment, I'll take Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think there's just something about this game that the Dolphins absolutely got obliterated by the Jets in London back in week 4. Do I think that's going to happen now? Absolutely not. But I do believe that the Jets, if Revis can play, Mango can play, they just have enough to beat the Dolphins. Like if I was doing a point spread, this is a -3 point spread. And honestly, like I said, I would not be surprised if they win this game. But I just have to think the Jets offense with their weapons and talent and say that they just have enough to win this game. It's going to be a sloppy game. I'm not looking forward to this game. I think, the Jet fans or Dolphin fans are going to be actually at that game. I feel bad for you guys. But, when you look at the Jets defense, it's still, effective in some ways. And the Dolphins don't have a DeAndre Hopkins on their team that can be that explosive. And, I just have confidence in that. Again, this is an awkward, sloppy game, but I'm going to take the Jets here just because they're at home. It's kind of like Buffalo KC. It's like the dumber down version of Buffalo KC. So that's why I'm going to take the Jets to beat the Dolphins. Giants over Redskins. The Giants are on a bye, and they were resting, and they also picked up Hakeem Nicks which was huge. I actually thought they would have picked up Akeem Nicks anyway because they just needed receiver depth. And to me, I think Victor Cruz, he needs to take a pay cut, get traded, or get cut by the Giants because missing 26 straight games is just not a good thing, especially for a calf injury. A calf. It wasn't like he tore his ACL or he was coming off his torn Achilles, I think, which he suffered last year. He recovered from that. This was a calf that he couldn't come back from. And you know who also missed 26 straight games? Sam Bradford. And look where he's at now. So, and remember, the Rams asked him to take a pay cut, and they didn't want it, so they traded him. So, Victor, I hope you get better. I hope you can play next year. But please, just take a pay cut, get traded, or get cut, because you just can't miss that many games getting paid that much. So, but, you know, when I look at this game, the Redskins, there were some ticky-tack calls in that Panthers game, I'll admit that. Especially with that pick six that was taken back, and then there were some other interceptions that got called back. But it's just something where Eli Manning has always tended to play the Washington Redskins really well. I think actually he has the best record all time for the Giants franchise, or even in the NFL, against the Washington Redskins. And the Washington Redskins at home, amazingly, Kirk Cousins in his last 4 games at home he's completed 70.2% of his passes. He's thrown for 1,138 yards, 9 touchdowns to no interceptions in his last 4 games at home, which he's won all of them. And on the road, he's been absolutely awful. He's completed about 59.8% of his passes. I think he threw for another touchdown, so that's 5 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He had another couple fumbles, so that's about 10 turnovers now for him. But when I look at this game, I'm just going to take the Giants. I think that, you know, again, they're rested. They've been definitely sparked by JPP's return. I think he's been incredibly effective. And just some odd reason, the Redskins and Giants, you know, this is always one of those games that, you know, it's down to the wire. But in this game, I'm going to take the better quarterback. And right now, if you gave me Eli Manning or Kirk Cousins, I'll take Eli Manning. Again, you know, could the Redskins play a great game? They could. Just like I said, I just gave you the numbers for Kirk Cousins' last 4 home games. And I'm going to take the Giants here just because they have the better QB. And, yeah, that's it. They have Eli. And Eli will beat Cousins. So, that's why I'm going to take the Giants to beat the Redskins. Oakland over Tennessee. This is just something where Oakland has to win this game. Right now, the Tennessee Titans would be tied with the Browns and the Chargers as the top 3 picks in the NFL draft. They all have the worst record in the NFL. The Titans just lost to the Jags. They only going to put up 13 points against the Jags. And again, they've been really competitive in all their games, and I'll give them credit for that. But Oakland, this is your moment. If you want anybody to stop saying that you are the Raiders, and I'm shouting out the football guru as well, John Glover, your team has to win this game. Because people like King Poetic, like I mentioned earlier, have been dogging the Raiders for being the Raiders. And this is a game that against Mariota, who's played effectively, and by the way, I think he has 10 touchdowns, or he had about 8 touchdowns and no interceptions on the road, which ties Marino for the rookie year. So that's incredibly impressive. But if you want to get rid of that old Oakland Raider or the current Oakland Raider stigma, you have to win this game. You have to. And that's all what it is to me. I think that Oakland, they have to win this game. And I think, again, Tennessee, can their defense play well? Yeah, it can. It's underrated. It's one of the top 5 pass defenses in the league. However, Oakland's offense, if they want to shred any of the old Raider stigmas, they have to win this game. So, again, that's going to take the Oakland Raiders to beat the Tennessee Titans. The Bengals over the Rams. Boy, did the Rams look pathetic. I'm not saying that the Ravens looked any better, but Case Keenum had a lot of awkward throws. They committed 4 turnovers. Gurley only ran for 60 yards, and he had a turnover. And they ended up blowing a 13-3 lead, and we ended up scoring the final 13 points to win 16-13 yesterday. The Rams offense has not scored. The Rams offense has scored one offensive touchdown in the last 3 games. Or 2 offensive touchdowns in the last 3 games combined. And this Rams defense has been beat up pretty bad. And also, this is a Bengals team that I look at them and say this. They're angry because after starting out 8-0, they dropped 2 primetime games, which again, I'll say it again, drops Andy Dalton's record to 4-13 in primetime games. And again, this is a 1 o'clock game, and Andy Dalton in daytime is way better than Andy Dalton in prime time. But I just think, again, just Cincinnati, they just have too much talent. That the game against Houston, that's unexcusable. The game against Arizona, when you're playing equally, I'll give Cincinnati their props for playing that good of a game. They put up 31 points in the Cardinals' defense. I don't think they've given up 31 points. They've given up 30 points in back-to-back games. And that's a huge kudos to the Bengals for doing that. And I just trust this Bengals team. Like, to me, Marvin Lewis, if he wants his team to just gain some confidence and get back on the right track here, they have to, they should beat these Rams. Because the Rams right now look absolutely pathetic. They've lost 3 straight now. Yeah, they've lost 3 straight. And I just don't see how Jeff Fisher, who I've thought is overrated, overrated his entire career, is going to be able to keep his job. Because this year he doesn't have the quarterback excuse to back him up. He doesn't have Sam Bradford. He has Nick Foles, who looks just as bad as Sam Bradford. And again, I'll go back to the home stat. The Bengals in their last 21 home games are 18-3-1. So even with the loss against the Houston Texans, they don't lose at home that often. And this is a Rams team that's just hobbling their way into a game that they're going to get their butts kicked once again. So that's what I'm going to take the Bengals to beat the Rams. Tampa Bay at Indy. This is one of those, interesting games that looks a lot more entertaining right now. Tampa Bay has won back-to-back games. They won, let me think about it. 1, 2. No, I think they've won 3 straight or back-to-back for the first time in a long time. And Jameis Winston looks incredibly impressive. Has not turned the ball over in 5 of the last 6 games under his leadership. And the Bucs actually have more wins, or are about to tie as many wins as they had in the last 2 years with Jameis. But there's just something with me about Matt Hasselbeck that this year I've supported. I look at Matt Hasselbeck with this game in Indy, and again, he showed his backup qualities, I'll admit that, okay, and I'll admit that some of that maybe incredible stat lines were maybe because of his competition. Okay, I'll admit that. He had 2 horrible interceptions, including 1 in the red zone, which you cannot have. But I just, to me, I'm going to take the experience over the youth. Indy's looked really impressive. They've gotten 5 interceptions in their last 2 games. Indy's always seemed to dominate Tampa pretty well, even when Lovey was in Tampa. And I'll just take the veteran. That's what it is to me. The running games, Doug Martin's been having a solid bounce back year. I think he can deserve a contract extension. Maybe not a Charles or Peterson or Lynch type money quality, and maybe not even DeMarco Murray. Maybe a little bit lower than that, but he does deserve an extension with the way he's been playing. But I just think, again, Indy's on a bit of momentum. They've won back-to-back games. They're 2-0 under Rob Chudzinski as their offensive coordinator. And I think with just how bad Tampa's defense has looked at times, I think Indy, with Hasselbeck and his experience, can make enough plays against this Tampa 2 defense, especially with Fleener and Allen, to get the victory. It should be a great game, but I'm going to take Indy here. Arizona at San Francisco. This was fairly easy. Arizona, they are rolling. They've won 4 straight games. They're the number 1 ranked offense in the league, like I said before. Carson Palmer is playing like an MVP candidate, in my opinion. I would put him right now 3rd behind Newton and Brady. And they're playing a San Francisco team that they're angry from last year, the Cardinals are, because remember, Jim Harbaugh in his final game beat the Cardinals 20-17. However, that was with Ryan Lindley at quarterback, so obviously maybe nobody expected that, like me. But I look at Arizona and say they're just too powerful. And San Francisco, Blaine Gabbert's looked okay, and he's looked better than I thought he would. But he's still Blaine Gabbert, and he's still losing games and looking awful. And now with Colin Kaepernick on the IR for getting a surgery on his non-throwing shoulder for a torn labrum, which is incredibly awkward because he practiced the whole week. I'm going to take the Cardinals to win this game. They're just too powerful and too talented with just how lack of talent or lack of injuries the Niners have to use. I just don't see it working out for the Niners to win this game. And remember, they already beat them by 40 in Arizona, so they could beat them by 40 again in San Francisco. So that's going to take the Arizona Cardinals to beat the Niners. Pittsburgh over Seattle. I'll need to look this up, but I can't remember the last time Seattle lost 3 home games in a year. It's probably been a while since they've done that. But I'm going to take Pittsburgh here just because I have some stats on Seattle that I've been trusting, and I'm going to just use it again. Seattle is 5-0 against teams 500 or below 500. And in those 5 games, their defense has averaged 7.3 points per game. Incredibly impressive, but they were playing teams that are below 500. They beat the Niners twice. They beat the Cowboys. They beat the Bears, and they beat the Lions. Bravo. Okay, so they're their 5 wins. In their 4 losses against 500 teams or better, because I'm going to take out the Rams, okay, they've given up 30 points a game to those 4 teams, okay? And you could say, well, Cam Chancellor didn't play the first 2 games. They still gave up 30 points a game with Cam Chancellor on the field. And Pittsburgh, with Big Ben, he should be healthy. The fact that he played backup a couple weeks ago was unbelievable because it was like Landry Jones went down. But I do believe Ben will be able to start. And I think with his offensive talent around him, even with D'Angelo Williams, it would have been more effective if he had Le'Veon Bell. But D'Angelo Williams has proven to be a solid backup running back for this team. And I think that they can put up another 28 to 30 points on this defense. Because that's how Pittsburgh, is, to me, they are a good team. And I do believe that, especially with the Bengals slipping, they could catch them possibly. Could. I still think the Bengals, with their schedule, probably should win the North. But I do believe that Pittsburgh can catch them now, since he's losing back-to-back games. And to me, I just look at Pittsburgh and say, they have enough offensive power. They have Antonio Brown, who is leading the league in receiving yards, and which is incredibly impressive. They have Bryant. And also the Seahawks defense, in their 5 losses against, in their 4 losses against, these 500 teams, have had fourth quarter leads and blown them. So even if the Seahawks had the lead in the fourth quarter, I'm not going to be that concerned because I just feel like with Pittsburgh's offense, with the talent they have, they'll blow it again. Again, this is going to be a great game. This is my game of the week. It used to be New England-Denver, but then what happened with Peyton kind of ruined that. But Pittsburgh at Seattle, this is my game of the week. But I'm just going to trust the Pittsburgh defense, which has been pretty well this year, and the offense so that they can beat the Seattle team that's been struggling against the better teams in the league. So that's going to make the Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Seattle Seahawks. Sorry, guys, scratching my nose. My nose is a little stuffed up, so that's why I've been doing that. New England over Denver. Brock Osweiler, to me, when I look at this game, he had a solid game. I actually was somewhat impressed by him. He made some good throws. He showed some good athleticism. He did trip Ronnie Hillman on the 4th down, which baffled my mind. But I look at Denver and say this. If they had Peyton and if he was playing any better, I would take the Broncos. But this is Brock. He played Jay Cutler with a limited offense. Even though, again, Cutler put up, the Bears put up a fight. So I'm not expunging any blame from the Bears. But this is Tom Brady. And even though, again, I will say this. The Patriots have won the last 3 games in this series with Peyton, against the Broncos. But they were all in New England. The last time they were in Denver, which was the AFC Championship game of 2013, they lost. And also, Tom Brady in his entire career only has 2 wins against this team. And in fact, I think this is the only team in his career that Tom Brady has a losing record against in the league. He has a winning record against every other franchise in the league except the Denver Broncos. And there's just a part of me going that, look, Brady won't have Edelman, they won't have Lewis, but he still has enough talent around him. He makes enough talent. And Brock going up against Cutler with his weapons, sure. With Jay Cutler's inconsistencies and with the turnovers, that can happen. Brock doing that against Tom Brady, that would shock me a lot. And I do think, that would be defensive driven. But I just can't take Brady now with Brock Osweiler expected to start against the Patriots to win this game. Nothing against Brock. And again, now, after getting the first 6 games of the Broncos right, now I've dropped 4 straight. But with this game, I look at Brady and this offense. They're one of the top offense in the league. Brady's destroyed this Denver secondary and defensive floor with all the weapons they have. They probably won't have DeMarcus Ware again, which would be huge. And I just expect Tom Brady, with his talent and his power, of this offense, to win this game. Sorry, guys, I have to move a little bit. Over the Denver Broncos. And then finally, the Monday night game, the crappy toss-up game of the week. My Ravens are going to the Cleveland Browns. And wow. More and more injuries for the Ravens. Now we've lost our number 1 running back to a broken arm for the year. And Joe Flacco, for the first time in his career, had an injury. And it's a torn ACL. And he's now out for the year. And again, it's unbelievable that in our 10 games, we have not played a game that was decided win or lost by 8 or more points. 32 points in 7 losses, 9 points in victories. Unbelievable how just competitive we are. And again, to me now, with losing Flacco and Forsett, I'm just kind of going, what, if we get some more wins, we might be one of the most respected losing teams in the entire NFL. Because there were even some games, I guess now I can eliminate the Chargers, because at least in every game we fought, and it didn't matter who we played. At least we fought. So, I can respect that. And what's funny enough? It's just some awkwardness to me that I think with the Browns of how they're struggling, Johnny Manziel only put up about 6 points. Even though he did look more effective, I'll take Matt Schaub for this game over Johnny Manziel. Both running games are about average. Both wide receiving cores are shot up. Cleveland has the better defense. But if I had to trust Matt Schaub against that secondary or Johnny Manziel against ours, I'm going to take us. Again, would I be surprised if the Browns win this game? Not at all. Just with how many injuries we've had and just how our season's been going, we've had heartbreak like that. And the Browns have won 2 of the last 3 games against us. And remember, they beat us by a field goal in overtime back in Week 5. So I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm going to take the Ravens here just because I think we have a little more added motivation. And we can beat this Browns team, I still think, with just as limited talent as we have. So those are my thoughts and picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. I'd like to wish everybody out there a happy Thanksgiving to watching my videos. Thanksgiving to me is about spending time with your family and enjoying the 4 F's of Thanksgiving. Family, fun, food, and football. And I'll say that again. Family, fun, food, and football. Those are the 4 F's of Thanksgiving. And I hope everybody enjoys those 4 F's with their families. And, and also, I'd like everybody to check out the NFL YouTube prognosticators page. Shout out to guys like Gio Knows, Billy B, Half Moon's Picks, Master Chief Hill at JustMyPicks.com, The Football Guru, King Poetic, Bridgewater's Finest, Mason Cole, Terrell Harmon, TJ Harmon. Who's here? Half Moon's Picks, Gino Biscotti, the Mass Tweeter, Kid RR Blue, big Giants fan, watch his picks, Andrew Warren. Check out all those guys' picks, all those guys and gals. Shout out to Philadelphia as well. Those picks, they are great prognosticators like myself, and they have great insight into games like I do. So please make sure to check out that page, and that's it. So until next week, good luck to all players, teams, coaches, fellow fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off, wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And until next time, so long.